my friends, Jared Dukes with you. Appreciate you joining me today. We are going to be talking about at length the odd debate from last night. We're going to look at it, do some analysis. Appreciate everybody joining me. I want to take just a minute. Let's make sure that we are on all the platforms. Looks like we're good on Twitch and X. Looks like it's coming online. All righty. Fantastic. Okay, if you can't hear me or any issues, you know, the usual, just let me know. But what a debate we had yesterday. Obviously, one of the most consequential debates I have ever seen. Very, very revealing. And let's be straight up and honest about this. I've been talking about this for a long time, a long time. I don't want this show to be about, I told you so, even though I made that the title of the thumbnail. But it is true. I've been talking about it. We've been talking about it. It's very clear that our president is suffering from some sort of dementia. We're going to take a look at that today, see what the possible causes of his obvious issues are. But you know what is really striking and outrageous in this whole situation is we have been lied to by all of these so-called talking heads, the mainstream media. They have just been feeding us this nonsense that these videos are essentially doctored videos. They're deep fakes, or what they've been referring to as cheap fakes. That was coming directly from the White House press secretary just the other day when Fox News was questioning her about these gaffes, these odd situations with the Pope and with President Biden over in France. Absolutely unacceptable. I believe I heard one of the politicians talking about we definitely do not need another debate between President Trump and President Joe Biden. Our enemies are watching this type of thing. It is something that puts each and every one of us in peril. When you have a weak and feckless leader like we have right now in President Joe Biden, it should give us all very serious reason to be concerned. This is the man in charge of our nuclear football codes. Imagine that. It is it's really striking, somewhat surreal. And we're about to dive into the actual videos here, but imagine, just imagine, they've been lying to us this entire time, and we have a good possibility this man could win re-election. It's really just that simple. And for it now to finally come out, folks, the way I look at it is this: it really doesn't matter if President Biden wins or President Trump wins on some level. And that level is we have to have a leader in the White House that's competent, he's in control of his faculties, and he can do the job that needs to be done. It's one thing to argue about policy and which way the country should go, but when you have a leader that clearly cannot do the job, that is extremely worrisome. And to know that our enemies all over the world are watching the same nonsense that we're watching, it is absolutely stunning. All right, before we dive into it, Zach, thanks for showing up again, my friend. All right, appreciate. Maybe you can listen with us as you're heading your way to the grocery store. I'm going to attempt not to make this too long. I just want to hit some of the highlights and get everybody some type of ability to chat and just air out what is obvious and what is something that should scare all of us. We remember back from the president's, what was that, the State of the Union debate, where the President Biden came in all jacked up, hyper, talking a million words a minute. I think what happened in this case is they definitely gave him his meds, no question about that. But I think they gave it to him a little bit closer to when he took the stage, because clearly the first half of the debate was much more problematic, is probably the kindest words I can use. And then near the second half of the debate, he was more engaged, at least as far as his verbal tone went. Let me know if you agree with that. Zach, tell me, you agree? Am I missing something there? And there's one other thing before we drill into this. I really felt sad when I saw President Joe Biden freeze up in the debate right near the beginning of the debate. It was very sad. On one hand, as a person that's rather conservative, and I have my views, I know the woke Democrats have their views. It's okay to have different views, but when you have our leader, and he's my president, your president, well, whether we like it or not, but to have an individual on a human level that is clearly, now they keep saying he's in decline. The man has dementia. The man has some type of clear disease process going on. Now, President Trump even talks about age, or I think it was Biden said, "Oh, you're 3, 4 years younger than me." It has nothing to do with age, but it does have to do with how competent somebody is. Can they do the job? Can they not do the job? Are they suffering with a disease like dementia, or are they not? And we need to stop sugarcoating it, and we need to call it what it is. It is funny on one level, but really it's a tragedy. And I have to tell you straight up, when I was watching this yesterday, I actually felt sad when this was happening. I felt bad for the man, and shame on his wife for doing what she's doing with this man right now and lying to him and telling him things along the lines of, "Oh, Joe, you did a good job." I heard one of the commentators earlier say it's almost like he's a pupil in school. She told him effectively, "Hey, it's kind of like you did a good job to a child." She said some words to the effect of, "Joe, you answered all the questions. Good boy." Really? This guy's the president of the United States, and you get participation marks. Rather unbelievable. Yeah, he's probably got emoting in him, no doubt about it, and very low expectations of his performance. So I have to say, he did better than 1 out of 10. Yeah, it is really amazing how bad this performance was. And truthfully, I think what I was more surprised about was after the debate. And again, we'll take a look at this in a minute. After the debate, CNN, I mean, well, I don't know how you would word it other than to say they just had a meltdown in their studio right there after seeing this man freeze up and answer questions the way that he answered them, or did not answer the questions for that matter. The guy looked angry. He was talking about things that have nothing to do with presidential politics, like their golf game or their golf swing, and to tell the man on a personal level, "You slept with a prostitute while your wife was home pregnant." Oh my goodness. I'm all about, mixing it up and a good fight. I get that. In my opinion, when you start going down that road, that's not even normal discord. That's getting to where it's a mental disease process going on where you think that's okay. Surely you've been around older grandparents or parents or whatever, and when they start having this type of stuff happen, they have no filter. They're mean, they're nasty, they're vile. They don't care what they say. And I think that's exactly what we all experienced when we saw this nonsense going on yesterday. Unbelievable. And Zach, I agree with you on your comments. It was like a 1 performance or lower. The expectation bar was already set very low. I don't know how much lower you can go. And Jill does humor him. A quick brief side note, then we're going to drill into the first video. One of my favorite individuals, non-religious, that's in the history books is probably, and this may or may not surprise some of you, George Washington. Now, why would I say George Washington? Because he's the father of our country. I think what he did, and I'm about to tell you right now, is something that he does not get enough credit for. And what did George Washington do that was so amazing in my mind? And it was not starting the United States of America. It was not being a founding father. In my mind, what makes George Washington a very special figure, non-religious figure in the history books, including American history, obviously. I'm just talking history in general. He did what nobody else in history ever did before him. And what he did was he was at the helm of power. He was a very powerful man at the time. I don't know if he'd be the most powerful man in history at that time or of the world, but he was very powerful. He was at the helm. He could have tried to make himself a king. There's a lot of things he could have done, but what he did that was so amazing is he had all that power and he walked away from it. It was important to him that he set the example of a transfer of power without bloodshed, without one bullet being fired. And of course, that is the tradition that we have been sticking with for quite some time. So imagine that. Again, he does not get enough credit in my mind for doing that, but that's what he did. Up until that time in history, there had never been an example like that where somebody had all the power, and after their term was over, they walked away from it and allowed it to be the mantle to be passed on to the next leader, the next ruler. the next quote unquote king. I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to convey. If you agree or disagree, put it in the comments, or if you have an example in addition to what I just said, let me know. But my understanding is, because at one time I wrote a research paper or something on that, I just was really, it was really striking to me what this man did, and I realize he's on our money and stuff like that, but he set the example, and I just think that is exactly where it should be. Hello, Rosemarie. Appreciate you joining us today. Yeah, he did look like a mummy. He definitely looked like he did not know what he was talking about. He looked aloof, like he was a frozen statue. I guess that's the best way to say it. Yeah, it is a fact George Washington chopped down a cherry tree. That's right. That makes him even better. So, and Zach says, hello, Rosemary. All right. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at our first video. Now, you may or may not have seen this, and I'm trying to think what channel they had it on, but one of the interviews that we've looked at together on this very channel pertained to an interview that Joe Biden gave, like, I think it was just 2 years ago, or it was no more than 3 years ago. It was actually it was 2022 that I'm thinking about it. He gave this particular interview to 60 Minutes, and the difference in the way he spoke then, 24 months or so ago, versus now is unbelievable, and it's just shocking. I also want to talk about exactly where are we going to go to from here, and what are the options for the Democrats that want to see about potentially having a new leader. So let's take a quick peek at this and just listen to the way Joe Biden spoke, how he engaged with people. All right, so you can clearly see how he's making eye contact with this particular reporter. He's answering the questions directly. Notice his tone of voice. He's lucid. He's coherent. He's able to essentially get through the interview and do a proper interview that we expect from a president of the United States. Now, the way he is today versus the way he is or was back then, just look at his face, look at his eyes, look at his demeanor. And by the way, I just put in the link in the chat to StreamYard. If you would like to call in and make a comment, ask a question, feel free to do so. All you have to do is click that link. It's real simple. The instructions are self-explanatory. I believe when you click that link, they'll have instructions there if you need them. You don't even have to come on video if you don't want. You can just use your voice, or you're welcome to simply click on that link. As long as you have some kind of camera phone, feel free to join into the discussion. So let's go ahead and let's pop over and let's look at some highlights from the speech last night. I think and by the way, Joe Biden is going to be interesting. He's supposed to be giving a speech here very soon. If he does go live, I have a monitor keeping track of that. If he does show up on speech, we'll take a look at it. Matter of fact, let me see if he is coming on right now. Give me 1 second as I double check. Actually, it's another speaker coming up to speak for him. But if he was to appear, I will definitely bring that to you live so that we can discuss the whole situation. So here's a video from Sky News. They're kind of like the Fox News over in Australia. You may or may not be familiar with Sky News, but I, for one, like Sky News. And here's a real brief, short video, but listen to the commentary and their take on this. I think it's striking.
Let's not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
Let's not act like children.
With the COVID, excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
They destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker.
Look at that face. Look at the way he's got that mouth kind of pinned open or grinding his teeth. I understand being aggravated. I understand being mad. That just, to me, looks like individuals, like I've said, that I've seen with dementia and other type of issues.
You're the loser.
President Trump?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up.
You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give your minutes.
By the way, that suckers and losers comment, whatever that is all about, you may or may not remember it from many years ago. The comment never happened. As a matter of fact, you remember, what is his name? John Bolton. He obviously has no love lost between him and Donald Trump. I believe he served as one of the advisors for Donald Trump. He used to be the ambassador to the UN years ago under George W. Bush. Well, at any rate, he has came out on the record a long time ago and has stated unequivocally the incident never happened. He was there at the time the alleged incident happened. And of course, they're just trying to rehash old stuff, throw it against the wall and see what sticks. It's really, really unbelievable. But let's continue.
Right, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me.
The only existential threat to humanity is climate change. And he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. We have a hostage, the Wall Street Journal.
It always surprises me and humors me to a large degree when you hear these woke Democrats always talking about how basically Donald Trump stopped this or stopped that. And in relation to this climate change nonsense, what are we going to do? We're going to destroy a multi-trillion dollar economy that effectively takes care of and feeds the world. And of course, I'm talking about the United States to what? Maybe stop the earth from warming 1 degree, 2 degrees over the next 50 to 100 years. Just a complete and utter joke. And like the president just said, and then what are you going to do? You're going to have China, Russia, and other countries. They don't play by those rules. We just go ahead as a country and we tie ourselves in such a knot where we can't be effectively a competitor on the world stage. It's just more of this woke, crazy nonsense. And I'll say one last thing about this climate change BS. When you get right down to it, when I was a kid, I know when I was a kid thing here, but here we go. I clearly remember we were taught that in 2020, we were going to be under ice. We were supposed to be in the middle of an ice age right now. They would say, oh, it was only 30 years between the ice age and the normal climate of today. And then, of course, they change it after that. And they said, oh, no, this or that's going to happen. I mean, there's all types of publications showing this. Even back in the late 90s to the early turn of this century, they used to call it global warming. Remember that? It was global warming. And then you had that one Minnesota candidate that was screaming and yelling and declaring her run for the presidency, talking about how hot the world is. And of course, you had snow so hard it was barely you were barely able to see her. And so what have they done now, folks? Well, of course, now they've got away with the warming nonsense, and now it's just climate change. We'll just go ahead and put everything under one umbrella. It's just climate change. Forget about the ice age, forget about global warming. It's climate change. That's what we're going to go with right now. They can't even tell you what the weather is going to be tomorrow, and yet they want you to believe that nonsense. And let's just say this. So what if the world increases 1 degree over the next 50 years or the next 100 years? Do you really care? Do you think anybody in Siberia is going to be complaining that it's going to be minus 40 instead of minus 41 degrees Fahrenheit? I mean, give me a break. Don't get me started. I'll really start ripping off on that.
Reporter, I think a good guy. And he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, he gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6.
Imagine that, talking about the golf game in a presidential debate with all the stuff that's going on in the world right now. That's what the conversation has turned to as some kind of nonsense golf game. Unbelievable.
And by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag.
Whoever was the genius who allowed Joe Biden to go on television with a split screen showing him compared to Donald Trump, I'm telling you what, if that person works for Joe Biden, they should be fired pronto.
Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie, that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was at 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I had, you know, how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Just insane. The I don't know. I'm curious how y'all felt about seeing the president freeze up like that on national television. I could just imagine all the other Democrats. I mean, how would you like to be a Democrat downstream pertaining to your race? Let's say you're running for the House of Representatives or even a Senate seat, but you know, you're below the ticket. Whether you know it or not, there's a lot of individuals when they vote, they go in and say they want to vote Democrat. Well, they go in and they hit the lever or the button for Democrat, straight up and down the ticket, so to speak. Well, in this particular case, it's really scary because if there's a lot of people that flee Joe Biden and move over to the Trump campaign, obviously it's going to hurt their candidacy. And then that's a real possibility. I don't know if they still use that term or not, but we call it coattails. That's what we used to call it. And that is effectively a president. When a president is running for office, let's say the president wins or whoever wins, we call him the president or president-elect. If they bring a lot of people with them as far as candidates down ticket, we call that a coattail. Did the president-elect have a long coattail or not have a long coattail? And Rose, we appreciate you always being in the conversation and for making some very good comments. And Zach, thank you for your comments as always, my friend. Okay, so let's go ahead. This next video is pretty good. We all know who Bill O'Reilly is and Geraldo Rivera. These guys are getting old. Hell, I think I'm getting older. These guys are definitely getting old. I think Bill O'Reilly's in his 80s or he's getting close to it. I know that Geraldo Rivera is in his 70s. Maybe they will repeat that here in this particular video. So let me go ahead and pop this one on. I think you'll find this good. Now they're on that new News Nation. There's Newsmax and News Nation. I get the two of them confused, but let's take a quick peek at this. I think you'll find this interesting. Let me know if you have any comments as usual. Just put it in the comments below and we'll address
I
them.
went to the World War II cemetery. World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
One of the many moments of contention in today's debate. But if you're watching this debate and you're trying to figure out what are people going to say, what are they going to think? Two of the first people I'd want to hear from, Bill O'Reilly and Geraldo Rivera, in addition to Chris Cuomo. All right. Bill O'Reilly, before the break, Chris Cuomo said the only thing we know.
Y'all remember Dan Abrams. We talk about him quite a bit on my program here. Sometimes, well, oftentimes his takes are way off on the left-hand side. He's like the quote-unquote legal face of Good Morning America or ABC News as a whole. And then, of course, we all remember Geraldo Rivera and, of course, Bill O'Reilly, who was fired at Fox News at one point.
Know for certain is that O'Reilly's going to say he was right about something. Bill, what do you make of it?
All right, Abrams, you just lost all credibility by saying that Cuomo is on the level of me and Rivera. Okay, I mean, your whole career is down a drain. I liked the debate. I liked it. All right, I wasn't boring. That's my only litmus test. I liked the debate. I'm going to give you some facts that maybe people don't know. So that's what I do. So Biden and Trump hate each other personally, loathe each other. No opening handshake, no closing handshake, very little eye contact.
They definitely hate each other, that's for sure.
In the first 40 seconds, Biden says he created 15,000 jobs. He meant 15 million jobs. So right away, I knew, as a professional who has debated thousands of people myself, that Biden was off his game. 12 minutes in, he melts down totally, the president. He starts to babble. He doesn't know what he's saying. He loses his train of thought. That soundbite will be run 1,000 times between now and Monday. And that is what sticks in people's minds. The turning point of the debate was Trump absolutely pounding Biden on the border and the violence against the young women. Biden had no response. Trump could have been worse. He could have said to President Biden, you didn't call any of the families, which is true. And Trump called them all. The fact check on News Nation was wrong. I'm sorry to say it. But I wrote a book, The United States of Trump, and the good persons on both sides remark was made in the context of taking down Confederate statues. That is the truth. I also talked to John Bolton, who despises Donald Trump.
Yeah, whenever they get into that game of who's lying, who's not lying, half the time the people checking the liars are liars themselves. So unless you check the facts yourself, or if you tune into @JR Dukes, I'll tell you the truth. Well, I'll tell you the truth as the way I see it anyways, through my eyes, but I digress.
Who was in the room when the alleged suckers comment was made overseas, and Bolton said it never happened. And I'll give you one more fact. David Axelrod on CNN said 10 minutes after the debate ended that Biden should not continue. He mumbled it, but if Axelrod is putting that out there, that's what you're going to hear for the next 5 days.
Yeah.
So let's let Geraldo tell me how desperately wrong I am on everything.
I'm not sure he's going to tell you you're that wrong. Geraldo.
Hi, Dan. Hi, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, I thought that your fact checking was excellent. Chris, I like
Thank
your
you.
wardrobe. Great improvement for this big night. I think that O'Reilly, because he needs to elaborate on various things.
Real quickly, I want to shout out Monique. Thanks for joining. It's always good to have you join us, and it's always good to see you. Thanks for
Is
joining.
burying the lead. When President Biden stumbled, then totally lost his train of thought and almost dropped his head in resignation, only to be saved by Jake Tapper asking.
Yeah, remember that one part where Joe Biden completely lost that? Man, he literally lost his memory, his train of thought. He was conflating different things that had made no sense. Luckily for him, he ran out of time. It's kind of like a boxer saved by the bell. And that's exactly what happened with Joe Biden at that one instant.
Asking the follow-up question of President Trump. That was a moment where I said, oh my God, has he had a stroke? What has happened?
Yeah.
It was so dramatic. It was jaw-dropping. And I felt so badly for our president. I wanted to hug him. Why didn't someone bring him a glass of water? Didn't they have any water there? Why was that microphone 6 miles away from his mumbling mouth, his stumbling, mumbling? I mean, he did rally at times. He did show the true grit that we love. He did, especially speaking about his son, of course, and calling out Trump as a liar. I think that what happened here cannot be minimized.
I
don't
agree.
care what party you are, but I'm 81 years old. In 4 years, I'm going to be in a basket someplace.
Yeah, he's 81 years old. Imagine that. Geraldo Rivera, 81.
Would
He's
you
8
stop,
months older
Geraldo?
than I
That is stop. First of all, that's not true. Number one, but more
No,
importantly,
thank you.
you too are 81, and Geraldo.
Y'all recognize Chris Cuomo on the right-hand side, right? See if I can get my cursor to show. Right there. I don't know if you can see that on your screen or not. That, of course, is the brother of Mario Cuomo, the former governor of New York. Incidentally, he has recently came out essentially in support of Trump, as much as calling the New York cases and these other cases what we already know is nothing but lawfare. And, effectively, it's just weaponization of our legal system. And he rightly so was calling that out.
Although you're making forcefully your position known here.
No, Elizabeth, it's true.
I don't know. There's just no way
I
to
have
gloss
the
over
basket.
this.
It's true.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Go to
Okay, well, that's
join
I sometimes I find the clips that I find on there, I enjoy it. Sometimes I don't. It just depends on what they're talking about. I guess that's true in just about any particular clip. Now, I wanted to ask you too, what do y'all think, before we get into this next area, what do y'all think is going to happen with Joe Biden? I will say, even though he did such a terrible job I was a little surprised that CNN and these liberal woke individuals actually came out the way they did and were effectively saying that President Biden is history and that his campaign is over, or at least that it should be over. The reason I was surprised by that is because all this time they just continue to lie to us. I've used the illustration of a dog peeing on your leg, and they keep saying that it's raining outside. And of course, we know better, but it's that old expression, don't believe your lying eyes. So I don't know if you were the same way or not, but that's surely how I felt about the situation. I was a little surprised that they came out as forcefully as they did. I meant they should have been saying this for a long time. They should have been saying this a long time ago. You'll remember that movie that we've talked about it briefly, Weekend at Bernie's. I think it's back from the 90s. Effectively, they had this guy that died. And again, it's a long time ago, so I can't remember every detail about the movie. But the guy invited him over to have a party, have a good time for the weekend. And the host dies. The host is burning. And they basically take him around with them for the weekend, boating, whatever they're doing. And the guy's dead. So it's kind of funny the way they put that together. That's how I feel about this campaign. It's like the campaign from Weekend at Bernie's. It's kind of like the weekend at Joe Biden's. It's really, really striking, except it's just a presidential election type of thing. I don't know. You guys agree? Let me know. It's something. It was something to behold as far as the striking similarities of it, because I was thinking about that the other day, and I just thought that was interesting. Let's go ahead and let's jump in. This is a short clip from CNN, and this is not the full clip. I have the full clip. Hopefully we have time to get into that, but let's take a quick peek at this, and then we will talk about this. Look at her face right there. You can tell she is not happy. Again, this is right after the debate here.
David, I think we have to be very clear. This was a very bad night for Joe Biden. I have been talking to Democrats as this debate progressed, and you are starting to see here, at least privately, discussions among Democrats about whether or not Biden can effectively go on with this campaign against Donald Trump. Donald Trump did go through rapid fire lies. I mean, a machine gun of lies at times during this debate. He said things like everybody wanted Roe v. Wade repealed, that everything was rocking good when he was president. There were no wars. The Unselect Committee deleted all the evidence that Nancy Pelosi refused 10,000 National Guard troops. None of that was true. And Biden was not effectively able to bring the argument back to him. I talked to one Democratic member of Congress who is a strong supporter up till now of Joe Biden, saying to me, I am in a state of shock. He is diminished to an extent that has become undeniable. Biden's going to have to answer these questions. This was not just one night in the campaign. This was the night in the campaign so far. Another Democrat said, I wish this performance had been during the Democratic primary. If it were, we would have had a different nominee.
No question in your mind, given what you're hearing from your sources, that this is a conversation that's now underway.
It's a conversation that is being conducted privately at this point, David. The big question is, will any of it become public? Because it is very difficult to imagine a scenario where Biden can be replaced as the nominee. You would have to somehow open up the convention. Biden would have to, be the one leading it and saying, I'm going to release my delegates. There's absolutely no indication that he is willing to do this. And no Democrat is going to want to further damage Biden beyond what we saw tonight by being the first to come out and say that publicly, unless it's determined that there is truly a viable path to find another.
Yeah, this is something that is on everybody's minds right now. It should have been on their minds a long time ago. The reality is this: despite what we witnessed with Joe Biden, unless Joe Biden decides that he's going to withdraw from this campaign, and I mean, it's really up to him because he controls all the delegates. I've had a few conversations with some of my friends, but unless there's actually a death, a resignation, or something along those lines. And, the third category is basically disability, but this particular disability at this point doesn't qualify because he still has enough of his faculties to say, hey, I won the, debate, or at least I won the primary. That's the word I'm looking for. I won the primary. I have the delegates. I'm entitled. to be the nominee. I'm the current president as is. I mean, that's going to be his story. So unless he has a change of heart, he's going to be the nominee officially, and he's going to be on the ballot in November. What really does surprise me, in addition to all this, is the fact I can't even believe that it's even as close as it is. I guess we need to wait for the new polling, but clearly there are some people that will blindly follow an agenda, follow a platform, if you will, no matter who is at the head of that platform or that agenda. And we need to realize this. Kamala Harris is poised to be the next president of the United States. I mean, if you look at Joe Biden, you look at his health right now, this one guy just mentioned they were worried that, I think it was Geraldo Rivera. He said, I was worried the president literally had a stroke right there on stage. And come on, the guy is 81, 82 years of age. He's obviously not in good health. If something, God forbid, happens to him, our next president is President Kamala Harris. Isn't that sobering? I don't know. It's a good thing I don't do drugs, because if I did, that would definitely wipe out my buzz. I can promise you that. That is not something that that's not a thought that I cherish under any set of circumstances. I don't know. Okay, now let's switch over. We have to go to our favorite channel real quick. I want to make sure I said hello to everybody that was in our comments. We have had some good comments, and I do appreciate them. I think that the feedback we get on this at times on and off is great. So let's go ahead and drill into this next video. Now, again, we're going to see a lot of long faces, because you have a lot of these commentators. They are definitely not happy. I wouldn't be happy if it was reversed. You can see her face right there. Now, again, this is MSNBC. Let's listen to just a portion of this, and then we'll go. We'll talk about it.
Joy. Yeah, I can relate to having a cold. I have a negative COVID test and a slight cold as well, so I understand not feeling well. And obviously, Joe Biden comes in with certain deficits. He has a stutter.
So that,
it is more difficult for him to communicate.
Allegedly, President Biden has a cold, and I'm sure that's going to be one of the many excuses they're going to say as far as the president's concerned. But let's see.
For that reason. So there's a lot to mitigate the way that he speaks, and you can understand it. And we've observed him for a long time. That said, I too was on the phone throughout much of the debate with Obama world people, with Democrats, with people who are political operatives, with campaign operatives. My phone really never stopped buzzing throughout. And the universal reaction was somewhere approaching panic. The people who were texting with me were very concerned about President Biden seeming extremely feeble, seeming extremely weak. And, I'll just reiterate what I said earlier. President Biden had one job tonight, and it was one primary job. And yes, it was to litigate Donald Trump.
You know what? I think that the president is live right now, President Joe Biden. So let's see if I can get that to pull up real quick, and we'll take a quick peek at this and see if they allow me to stream it. If I get in trouble, if I go black all of a sudden, you know why, but it may be worth it. Let's see if he can handle this and see how this works out.
Is being fined $400 million for business fraud.
Just from Sky News.
I thought to myself, Donald Trump isn't just a convicted felon. Donald Trump is a one-man crime wave. He's got more trials. He's got more trials coming up. Well, it's time for that. Look, the thing that bothers me maybe most about him, he has no respect for women or the law. He doesn't. And then his biggest lie, he lied about how he had nothing to do with the insurrection of January 6th. We all saw with our own eyes. We watched it on television. We saw thousands in his direction attack the Capitol. We saw police being attacked, the Capitol being ransacked, the mob hunting for Speaker Pelosi, gallows literally set up for Mike Pence. And then he told him as he sat in the dining room, the private dining room, one door off my Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching the TV. He did not a single thing to stop it. Nothing. Nothing at all. And And now he wants to pardon all those convicted and criminals.
Yeah, he's muddling a little bit.
But folks, for all his lies, we learned some important truths about Donald Trump last night. We learned he's still proud of being the person who killed Roe v. Wade. We learned, we learned he's still proud about the pain and cruelties inflicted on America's women. We learned he still believes that politicians, not doctors and women, should make decisions about a woman's health. We learned that if he's elected again and the MAGA Republicans pass a national ban on abortion, he will sign it.
He just loves the lie, doesn't he?
Donald Trump says he thinks overturning Roe v. Wade was a beautiful thing. I think it was a nightmare. No, I really mean it, a nightmare. And I made it clear again last night that if you elect me and Kamala, you give us a Democratic Congress, we will make Roe v. Wade the law of the land again.
Well, that's all that he can do is try to essentially try to scare the bejesus out of everybody, trying to say, hey, if you elect Donald Trump, the end of the world's happening. You're going to lose abortion rights, abortion access, whatever. I mean, that's pretty well all that he's got. If you're wondering why I keep switching the screens, I do that just to make sure that we don't get shut off. So, generally speaking, it's legal to share this, but sometimes the filters, the bots, whatever you want to call them, can cause an issue. So that's what's going on.
Who had the largest deficit of any president in 4 years because of the $2 trillion tax cut to the super wealthy. We learned that Trump wants to give another giant tax cut for the very wealthy and the biggest corporations. This time, $5 trillion. Not a joke. $5 trillion. To pay for it, he's going to cut Medicare and Social Security. He'll cut health care. He'll do it all with millions of working middle-class Americans all pay for another tax cut for the very wealthy. Then, to add insult to injury, he wants to raise taxes on the average family $2,500 a year. What amounts to a new 10% sales tax on all products imported in America. That's his new plan for food, coffee, candy bars, and so much more. It's going to raise the taxes on the average family $2,500 a year. And most dangerously, though, we learned that Donald Trump will not respect this year's election outcome.
It's just amazing how they continuously keep lying, and the mainstream press will never say anything. I mean, everything coming out of the man's mouth, at least what I heard, is a complete lie. Donald Trump didn't say he wouldn't respect the election results. He did not say anything about I'm going to raise your taxes. As a matter of fact, if the Trump tax cuts are not re-implemented, if they are not reauthorized, all of us, I don't care what your income level is other than zero, is going to have a de facto tax raise. That's just the reality. But of course, these people just love to tell you exactly like it's not. But when you see his performance like that, that's what I was talking about with the State of the Union. You're going to have these flickers. You know, you're going to. That's exactly right, Monique. It's gaslighting. You're going to have these instances where one day he may seem somewhat more normal, more engaged, more lucid, and then you're going to have what we had happen last night. And by the way, that's after allegedly a week of preparation, aka sleeping. Just pretty outstanding when you get right down to it. I will say this, I have to sometimes listen to what he says, but it does generally drive me batty to have to listen to that. One final thing I want us to take a look at. Let's see how well this plays. I recorded the speech last night and I recorded the end of their discussion. I really want to focus in on the end of CNN's discussion because it's not really showing anywhere online, and I think it's worth taking a listen to. So let's drill into this for just a minute.
The price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out a position where.
Isn't it interesting how they seem, or I should say Biden seems to, let's just say basically, like during this debate, obviously he wasn't in command of all his facilities, to be nice about it. And then you see him today at that speech that he's giving, and he, at least in my opinion, he seems like he's a little bit more with it than what he was last night. Again, I think it's attributed to all those meds and everything we were talking about, and we'll just have to, it's going to fall where it falls. Now, okay, let's take a peek at this. This was at the end of the debate, and I think the comments that they had right at the end of the debate was striking. One other thing I want you to pay attention to is you're going to see Donald Trump. If you can see it on your screen, I'm going to blow it up as big as I can. Donald Trump just literally exit stage left, I guess is what you would call that, pretty quickly. No shaking hands, no nothing, got out of there. But you'll watch Joe Biden. He's going to walk off the stage just like we've seen him walk many times off stage, like an old elderly man, just like the Her report describes. So at the same time, let's kind of be mindful of both the comments and watch Biden in the background to the best you're able. If it doesn't show up good here, maybe what I'll do, I'll make another video and zoom in on that, because I think it's very notable.
Former presidents making their way off the CNN debate stage. Looks like Jill Biden, the first lady, has come out. Former President Trump walking off the stage. The first debate of the 2024 campaign and the earliest presidential debate ever, now in the books and in front of the voters. Tonight, along with Aaron Burnett, the first word on
See,
what those
watch them
voters
there
might
going off
make
the
of it
stage.
from our
You'll see
political
that.
professionals from our CNN Flash Poll and Swing State Focus Group. We'll be talking to surrogates.
Okay, it's playing, but I muted it. Watch him walk off there. His wife took his hand and is guiding him over there. Did y'all see that as he's coming off stage? Pretty remarkable. Just obviously what we expect from Joe Biden, this very elderly looking old man, confused, dazed, not sure where to go, what to do.
Now, as we speak, there is a deep, a wide, and a very aggressive panic in the Democratic Party. It started minutes into the debate, and it continues right now. It involves party strategists, it involves elected officials, it involves fundraisers. And they're having conversations about the president's performance, which they think was dismal, which they think will hurt other people down the party in the ticket. And they're having conversations about what they should do about it. Some of those conversations include, should we go to the White House and ask the president to step aside? Other of the conversations are about, should prominent Democrats go public with that call? Because they feel this debate was so terrible. They do say in moments in the debate later, the president got better and got his footing, but then at the end, even his closing statement was a little halting. The contrast between the two candidates. Let me be clear. None of them, and a lot of Republicans, don't think Donald Trump had a great night. Donald Trump broke the fact check machine more than I can count tonight. That will be on the record as we go forward. He refused to answer some very specific and direct questions about his conduct, about January 6th and what all. So that will be dealt with out there. And sometimes
More lies, of course, from CNN, the so-called mainstream
it'd
press.
be nice to see what the voters say. But I can tell you, it started minutes in. It started with the first couple of answers, and it has continued throughout the night from a, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, to what do we do about this? And it involves very senior people in the Democratic Party, including elected officials, saying we have a problem.
And just to co-sign what John is saying, I mean, the panic that I am hearing from Democrats is not like anything that I have heard in this campaign so far. And a lot of it has to do with, first of all, there was a deep frustration about Trump's lies. I mean, he lied a lot tonight. But the problem for Biden was that Trump was able to take sometimes incredible falsehoods and turn them into some kind of argument, whereas Biden's answers were, in a lot of cases, not coherent, deeply problematic, that he was not able to take pretty straightforward answers and answer them to the American public. And then also at some points, bringing things up that teed up Trump attacks. So there's a real concern here tonight that there's been some real damage done that cannot be undone. Biden solidified the perception among voters, but especially among his base. They were hoping that tonight would be a game changer. They are now seeing a president who is in the White House, who they do not necessarily believe can do this for another 4 years.
David Axelrod?
Yeah, I totally,
how much
I
have
totally
his debating
agree.
skills declined? maybe they haven't declined at all.
I totally agree. It was a game changer, but probably not the way President Biden hoped it would be. And Monique, I agree with your comment, a walking corpse. Absolutely.
We're assuming that they have. So that's going to be important. We're going to learn about that. And with Trump, we're going to learn how much has his maturity as a debater improved. We've seen him do crazy stuff as a debater. We've seen him do somewhat smarter. But we're not the only people that care about this. I just want to point that out. The whole world is watching tonight. It's not just about America. You got soldiers on the front line in Ukraine who are listening on radios right now trying to figure out, are they going to have a country after this election? You have people on an island nations with the waters rising wondering if climate policy is going to be thrown in the garbage can in this country. This is a very important moment coming up here. And I think that it's not just these individual points. Who are these men? Who have they become over the past 4 years? That's going to be revealed.
And what are they going to do?
Yeah.
In the White House, if they are there for another 4 years. I mean, I think particularly for Trump, there are a lot of unanswered questions about how he might govern a second time around. What is he going to do on abortion? What is he going to do when it comes to the federal government? What is he going to do on healthcare, on the border? The broad strokes, I think he's operated in the broad strokes at his rallies and in the very friendly interviews that he has done. But this is the moment when we need to get down to brass tacks about what it actually is. And he cannot just be on all sides of the abortion issue, for example. The American people are going to need answers.
Yeah, but I don't think Americans are looking for a policy debate. You're not going to get it with these very brief answers. This is performative. How do they look? Can they articulate an answer quickly and succinctly and wrap it up in the 2 minutes they have? That's what people are going to watch. They look like they're on their game. Right? Do they have energy?
That is true to a point.
Stage, it's going to matter to people.
That is true to a point, Dave. And certainly for the president, it's very important. But it's not just how he says what he says; it's what he says, and can he? These issues that you're talking about, can he land punches on Trump and not allow Trump to turn this into a referendum on Biden? And that to me is very key about how this thing goes.
And I'm struck by the historic moment that we're in, and the whole world is watching. This is simulcast internationally, where you have
This is that woman that's always on The View. She's definitely not a Trump lover.
convicted as the first felon running for president. And 18 weeks from now, we may wake up to it being President-elect Donald Trump. That's where we're at. And
Yeah, they know that this is very, very serious for President Biden. And like she just said, we may be waking up to a President Trump-elect. And of course, we pray that that is the case. And you can tell they are not very happy. I can't wait to see what the women on the View, the crazies on The View, had to say about this today. But I'm sure it's going to be entertaining.
Joe Biden has made his message. It is about preserving what America is, an American democracy. Yet he's underperforming. Tonight is the night he has to show up. The stakes are so high. And if he doesn't, there needs to be a real conversation about what's
What does it say about the Biden?
Well, the fact of the matter is, it is what it is. We've been talking about this for a long time. They have no one to blame but themselves. This has been nothing but a continued series of lies that they have tried to spread to each and every one of us. I mean, as I've said many times, they just think we're stupid. It's really the meat of it. They think we're stupid. They know how to run our lives. They know what is best for our lives. And I'm glad that this has happened front and center. And finally, instead of continuing the lies, some of these woke Democrats are saying what we already know, and that is that something needs to be changed quickly. On a programming note, I wanted to tell you a lot of fantastic cases have come down from the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm just looking at my notes right here. We had one come down today that has to do, I don't know if you all have been aware, but again, we have mentioned it a few times on the channel here, and that is something pertaining to what's called a Chevron doctrine. We got a ruling in that and a quick little cheat sheet. Fantastic news that basically this limits the government's ability through their little departments, like these little alphabet agencies or like the Fish and Wildlife agencies, or just even the EPA is probably high on my list. It limits their ability to have these unelected bureaucrats, these truly deep state members, from being able to essentially run/ruin our lives. And we're going to be talking about that, if not later today, definitely sometime this weekend, God willing. That's exactly what I got planned. There's another case that just came down that has to do with homelessness and whether or not cities can effectively move the people that are camping on the sidewalks and streets of our country. In my opinion, we got more good news in that particular case. Of course, we're still waiting on the case pertaining to former President Donald Trump's immunity. Going to be an interesting case. I am pretty certain that that has to come down Monday because the Chief Justice, John Roberts, said Monday is it. So the rest of these cases, and there's quite a few cases still to be had, are coming our way. I predict great news coming out of the Supreme Court pertaining to President Trump's immunity while he was in office as president of the United States. And I still have to read the ruling, but from what I understand, there's another ruling that came down pertaining to many of the so-called January 6th, the J6 defendants, which includes President Trump on some of the charges, because some of the charges in there is what we've seen way too much going on this year. And that is you got these zealous prosecutors trying to find a law or effectively make a law, what we call a legal novel theory, by trying to take 2 or 3 statutes and weave them together and say, oh, this is applicable to allegedly what these J6ers allegedly did on January 6th. And as far as I can read from the opinion, it looks like fantastic news that this is definitely a huge win for many of the individuals that were caught up in that nonsense, including but not limited to former President Donald Trump. I'm going to get into all that and drill down on that very soon. Also later today, I think I'm scheduled to be on Red Pill News's program. Either that, he's going to be on my program to be straight up and directed, but he's supposed to be on my program. At a minimum, we're going to do a simulcast on both of our programs because there's just so much to talk about. And I really want to take a deep dive on this speech, on this debate that they just had, because it's not something we can sweep under the rug. And then finally, we are going to talk deeply on exactly the following. What problem, what health issue does Joe Biden have? Again, some of you that have regularly joined me know that we've talked about that, but I have refined the parameters of what I'm looking for as far as the search queries go. And I think I've come up with some very interesting results that each and every one of you will like. I do appreciate everybody hitting the like button. It definitely helps the algorithm. If you're watching me on the X platform, and I got quite a few on X, I've had a lot of people on and off, please do me a favor, like or whatever they do over on X. If you want to really help the channel, I'll switch over to YouTube and subscribe to @JRDukes. There should be a link in the X listing so that it make it easy for everybody. And of course, my friend on Twitch, thanks for joining today. It's always good to have you in the program. I think I know who you are, so I'll just say hello. At any rate, if you have any questions, you can reach me at the number below. Text is always the best way. If you subscribe, that way you can hear and you'll be notified when the subscriptions or when a new video, a new live stream, whatever comes out, because until I get a regular program set up for myself, it's kind of whenever I got time, and you never know what that's going to be. So it's good that they definitely have that feature on there. I want to thank Zach. I want to thank Monique, Rosemary. Hope I don't miss anybody. I definitely appreciate you all folks being on here. I think one of my friends is on here too, or at least listening. If I forgot to say your name, I do apologize, but it is what it is. All right. I think that's it. I don't see any other questions. Definitely appreciate everybody being here with me. Always say, my friends, keep that mind free. Never give up. Till next time, I am J.R. Duke.